Hi there. Welcome to Taxonomies. My name is Brad Rourke and I'm back in Rockville, Maryland. This is the microphone that a friend of mine gave me for leading a campfire that went pretty well the other day, and I'm proud to be using it. Anyway, as some of you know, I'm a consultant and I have clients, and my wife's a consultant. She has clients too, and we've been talking lately about different kinds of project managers that we run into. We're often brought in to do some writing, and there's someone on the inside of the organization that's our client that has to be the project manager, whose job it is to make something happen, and we're there to help. And we've encountered the gamut of project managers, and here's the kinds that we found. There's really six that I can identify. The first one is, well, I call them the dish rag. They are totally passive. They really just see their role in the project as passing on feedback. They never give you a sense of which feedback is important. You just hear nitpicky things that their boss might have said, or a colleague might have said, or someone might have said at the water cooler, and it's just a mess. And the problem with that approach to project management, as many of you I'm sure have encountered, is that at the very last minute, right when you're about to publish something or release something, some fringe opinion from inside the organization at the last minute suddenly becomes important. Someone has decided that there's too many passive verbs in the first paragraph, and they've decided that passive verbs are bad and they just have to be eliminated at all costs. And the person who's running the project just can't stand up to them. They just pass along the feedback to you, and it's your job as the consultant to deal with it. Now, there's a related kind of project manager that I call the bureaucrat. I almost decided to call them the burnouts, but it really amounts to the same thing. There's a kind of project manager who appears to be effective, but what they're really doing is just passing the buck all the time, and they avoid responsibility by trying to appear responsive. And so someone will send them a note, and they'll immediately pass it on to you so that you have that feedback, because it's very important. And you'll send a memo back to them, and they'll immediately pass that on to everyone on the team because it's very important. They never take responsibility or ownership of the project. Now, sometimes the same thing will happen with them as happens with dish rags, which is something derails it at the very last minute. But the underlying cause is a little different, so they get their own category. Now, the second kind, or the third kind of project manager, I call the shotgun. Now, this is the kind of person who, they look, for all intents and purposes, they look like great employees and great organizational citizens. They move quickly, they move fast, they take ownership of things, and every time you send them something, it immediately goes out, just like with the bureaucrat, to everyone. And they're constantly bringing in new people, and it's like they're after some sort of freewheeling ethos of busyness, and they want to feel like everything's like fun and amazingly fast paced, and it's all so important. And the problem here is that the project always seems to take about twice as long as it needs to, and move twice as fast as it needs to at the same time. Everyone's exhausted by the end of something like that. Now, at the other end of the spectrum are the meeting makers. These are the ones who, in a good way, try to make sure there's consensus at every step of the way, that there's buy-in every step of the way. So they'll convene meetings. They'll convene a conference call. They'll convene 2 conference calls if some people can't be on the first one, because they want to make sure there's a consensus. Now, the good news there is that there are relatively few surprises at the end, because everyone's bought off. But, on the other hand, it moves very, very slowly. And it seems as if they're never making any of their own decisions. They're always asking for a group decision. On the good side, decisions do get made. on the negative side, they can get made very slowly. Now, on the other end of the spectrum from there is the iron fist. Now, this is the person who, if you're a consultant, beware of this person. You never meet anyone else in the organization. They've fully spec'd out the project. All they need you to do is write 7 paragraphs. And you send it to them. They do with it what they will, and then they get back to you on what the feedback is. Now, the problem here is that often they're not bringing in their own folks into the loop enough. And so things get derailed by their boss at the very last minute because they didn't realize they needed to get buy-in. So beware the iron fist. And that brings me to my favorite kind of project manager, and I just call this kind of project manager a good project manager. This is the one that isn't afraid to make decisions and isn't afraid to move things forward and has clear ownership of the project. But they're bringing people in at all times, where appropriate, to keep them up to date, to make sure they know what's up, to get decisions if they need it, but they're not afraid to say, well, because we need to move forward, I'm going to make this decision or that other decision. And Brad, you need to just move forward on that authority. The good thing there is that things get done. People typically feel consulted. They can live with the outcome even if every little step of the way they haven't had a hand in the decision. At least they've heard about it. And from a consultant's point of view, and granted, I'm not that important. Really, it's the client who's important. But from my point of view, these good project managers are the kinds I try to work with. I'll work with a lot of different people, and a lot of different people come across my desk, but my favorites are the good ones. And my least favorites, in case you care, are the dish rags. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait to see you again.